Okay, let's talk about email. The body of an email and the formatting of the message and the effect that that has, how you should approach it. So message priorities. Subject line is where you begin because that's your first impression. The salutation establishes the relationship between you and your audience. And while some people say don't include a salutation, it's confusing if you don't include a salutation. People wonder if they were actually supposed to receive the message, and it often creates more problems than it cleans up. So I like a salutation. I expect to see a salutation in student emails. The body is the message meaning, and the closing is the relationship and next steps. Now, the buffer is what we're going to discuss next, and that establishes that relationship as well. So we're going to briefly mention for the body that you should keep your paragraphs at 8 lines or shorter when possible to improve skimming. So keep that in mind. And now let's look at the buffer. The buffer is where we begin after we have our salutation, which is our dear so-and-so. So what is a buffer? Well, it's a greeting, a reminder of acquaintance. I sometimes call this a reader orientation. You know, whoever's reading it, orient them, tell them why they're getting the message, or remind them of who you are. Make them feel good about getting the message. Remember that they're a person and make a personal connection. Include a compliment, a statement of appreciation, an agreed upon fact. Now, sometimes I'll write my buffer after I write my entire message because I'm so focused on the message that I forget to connect with the person as a person. So what are some examples of those buffers I'll add at the last minute? You know, Dear John, I hope you're well. Dear Mary, it was great to see you in Houston. Dear Jeff, I'm sorry for the delay. Dear Mark, I saw your presentation at the ABC conference. It was excellent. Here's a thank you. Dear Desmond, at the 2018 competition, you carried a lot of responsibility. Thank you. Okay, so those are all buffers. I expect you, and your boss expects you, to use buffers. So do add them. They add that personal touch. If you are told that you are too cold, that you are hard to work with, buffers, and sometimes even deep piling buffers, having multiple buffers will really help. So make a connection and sound genuine. Be sincere. Now, next, what are the expectations for you in emails? You're expected to chunk information. That means you organize it for the audience. Put like with like. So use clear topic sentences, short paragraphs, headings and subheadings. Make information obvious. Don't hide it. If you have questions, make them clear. Identify your next steps. So what does that mean? In your mind, think of it like a Venn diagram. And let's say you find some data that might look a bit like the Death Star. But let's say you have a group of people who buy your product and you discover a subgroup within that group. Okay, we have a lot of homeschooling moms who are buying our software. All right. Now, I have another group that is not homeschooling moms but overlaps with my initial group. So I'm going to convey that. These are my recent market findings in an email. Well, here's what I need to do. Put like with like, have clear topic sentences, maybe identify those groups in a specific and obvious way that doesn't stereotype. And I'll remember that. Now, is chunking some weird term I've come up with out of nowhere for this class? No, you can find it in Wikipedia. This is what people are doing. And just about everything in a business writing class is based on what people are doing and have done. So you can figure out how to write well, and will be able to figure out how to write well and better by just doing a small amount of research over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Be aware that writing will change. Expectations will change over the next 10, 15, 20 years. In the body of your email, to use the direct approach, you're going to state the goal and purpose of the email. And you do that when people are generally inclined to do what you want them to do. So think about what the audience needs to do as a result of the email and what do they need to know. And then structure your email so that with the least amount of work or thought possible, they can do and know exactly what you want them to do and know. Why? Because time is money. In your job, you are expected to be efficient, and that means you don't hide what people are supposed to do and know from them. You give it to them so that they can make use of it as quickly as possible. So focus on audience needs, use logical keywords, and transition clearly from one point to the next. That means you use transition words. There are words and phrases. You dovetail your sentences so that people don't get lost. When you use a pronoun in one paragraph, you do not carry it to the next paragraph because you don't want to confuse people. You re-identify your pronouns in each paragraph. You use headings and subheadings, but you don't rely upon those to completely establish a transition. Instead, you use those topic sentences. You do make it clear what you're looking for in every paragraph. The indirect approach is what you use when the audience is likely to be hostile or negative, and that requires you to educate them. So you don't begin by telling them what they need to do and know or what they're going to do. You begin by stating agreed upon facts and priorities. As you all know, we need to reach 10% market share in the next 6 months in order to remain viable as a company. So this is something we all agree upon. And then you proceed logically through your chain of reasoning. You use keywords that are important to your audience, that they know the meaning of and that you know the meaning of, and you may even define them so that there is no confusion, and you transition clearly from one point to the next. Conclude with your primary point of recommendation or, their action. Here's what you need to do. So tips for writing headings. So if you're going to organize by headings, in your formatting, be consistent, use parallel structure, and formative words. What's an example? Well, here I've reached over to the Hunger Games, and here's an email from Caesar Flickerman to Seneca Crane. Dear Mr. Crane, comma, and you would use this comma in an email situation. We've organized the candidate selection and transportation this Friday to address your concerns. Now, we have 2 headings. Selection ceremonies. All ceremonies are currently set up to take place simultaneously. The hosts and camera crews are in place. You may air the footage at the time you choose. There should not be any leaks. If you wish to change the timing so that the footage is aired live and the selections take place one after the next, that could also be arranged. Transportation. Each set of candidates has a train awaiting them at the local station to immediately take them to the Capitol. The trains have been recently serviced and guards are in place. Ready for a great Hunger Games, comma, Caesar Flickerman. So here we have an organization that is easy to skim, easy to find the information, and whoever receives it has had an overview and then sees the organization. This is how you should organize your work, your thoughts. Give an overview if you're using the direct approach, and then make it easy for people to follow things and find what they need. In the body of the email, when you're formatting, use your numbered list for priorities and time order. Let's take show an example of time order. So, dear Mr. Nordcross, thank you for agreeing to help with the judging on Tuesday. Your part should be relatively easy. So notice the thank you, that's our buffer. It's also a reader orientation, the judging on Tuesday. Then we soothe any concerns. Your part is easy. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Arrive, sign in, collect, go to, evaluate, return. Then we have our closing paragraph. This year should be exciting. It's got a lot of great teams. You're going to really enjoy this. Contact me with questions is our more personal closing, and we have the person's name. So notice the parallelism of the time order. You don't need to say you need to. Just begin with that action verb. At the same time, you don't want it to sound harsh and unwelcoming. Sound welcoming. That means you're going to read through this and make sure that your tone is consistent with what you need your audience to perceive. In the body of the email, you're going to use bullets for equivalent priorities or goals, or an unordered list of similar things. So let's go to James Bond. Dear Mr. Bond, thank you for agreeing to bring the spy paraphernalia for our group's meeting on Friday. Just to confirm, you've agreed to bring the following: 3 two-directional spy cameras, 1 shoe phone, 17 skeleton keys, and 2 flying cars. I don't think the flying cars are similar to everything else in this list. In fact, I think they're much more important. But we're including this as a list of things this person is bringing, so it gets to be bulleted like everything else. We appreciate your help. If you need a driver for the second flying car, please contact me. You can all contact me if you want that. We'll set up a course in the parking lot. Obviously, if Q wishes to attend, we would love for him to speak at our panel. Thank you for your help at SpyCon, John Andre. So, this is how we deal with a list. Make it easy for people to check off the things that they're bringing. Don't hide them in a paragraph. So notice also that if people are bringing multiple things, then use a digit for your first number, and then for your number that describes the thing itself, spell it out. So spell out the word. 3 two-directional spy cameras. Think about how weird and awkward that would be if someone just wrote the digit 3 and then the digit 2. It would look like 32 directional spy cameras. It would get very odd and awkward, and there would be confusion. So think about how you represent things, and be cautious, and realize that your audience is going to make mistakes in understanding. So look for where they are likely to make a mistake, and then clear that up. Correct it before they ever get your flawed email. If you don't know how to write good email, and you find yourself in the workforce, you leave here, you go on, be aware that in 0.59 seconds, you can Google for this stuff. Write a meaningful subject line. Keep the message focused. Avoid attachments. Attachments, when people are opening things on their phones, they don't want attachments most of the time. Identify yourself clearly. That's that reader orientation. Be kind, don't flame. So don't yell at people. Proofread. Don't assume privacy. Know that your audience is going to send your email on to secondary audiences. And distinguish between formal and informal situations to really shape what you say to that audience. That's hard to do. These things are difficult to do, but you can do them. If you don't know how to write a good topic sentence, it takes 0.53 seconds to look it up and find out what your expectations are. Everyone has taken freshman and sophomore level classes in writing. You've passed them. You are expected to be able to do this. So look it up, figure it out, sit down, and then spend the necessary time, and it does take time, to write well. Writing well is frustrating because it takes time. And yet, it is the basis of your career, and it's the basis of efficiency. If you cannot write efficiently and clearly, your teams will waste time. Know that bullet points themselves travel in groups, so practice parallelism. Keep your bullet points thematically related. Begin each bullet point with the same part of speech. Don't use bullets to begin paragraphs. Bullets are bullets because they're swift and fast and right there. If you start paragraphs, even if you see other people do it as bullets, you're defeating the whole point of a bullet. Know that you know how your numbered list can show order or priority, and practice that. Look at that. Proofread that. In the end, you're going to want to write, read, revise, and reread before you ever send things out. And it will take more time than you think, and it will be frustrating, and that is just the way it is. We all hate doing it, and yet we do it. And you get better with time, and eventually you develop this as a skill set. You know what you like to read, and you know what it should look like, so you become better and better at it. And be aware that that's going to happen. That's the way your career will grow. And writing norms themselves will change over the course of your career. So know that too. Be flexible. Be aware that those writing norms and expectations will change, and be able to convey your own expectations. Have a good day, and it was fun talking to you. Bye.